In an era when immortal gods lived on Earth, there was a man destined to become a legend, Achilles, the hero of heroes. Achilles was the son of Thetis, a sea goddess, and Peleus, a mortal king. From birth, his fate was already sealed, to be the greatest warrior ever to walk the earth. The story of Achilles begins with a complicated divine love triangle. Thetis, his mother, was desired by Zeus and Poseidon. However, the oracle predicted that any son of Thetis would surpass his father in glory, threatening the power of the gods. Fearing being overthrown by a descendant as they had overthrown Kronos, Zeus and Poseidon gave up pursuing Thetis and decided that Peleus, the brave king of Phthia, would be chosen to marry the goddess. From an early age, she wished to make Achilles immortal and plunged him into the mystical waters of the Styx, making him nearly invulnerable. However, the heel where Thetis held him remained vulnerable. As the shadows of fate lengthened, Thetis grew increasingly anxious about the imminent Trojan War and her son's involvement. Desperate to protect him, Thetis disguised him as a girl and sent him to the island of Skyros. There, he fell in love with Deidamia, daughter of King Lycomedes, and from this secret union was born a son, conceived in secrecy and named Pyrrhus. Despite Thetis's efforts, Achilles was discovered by Odysseus and would be taken to the war as the Greek forces gathered for the journey to Troy. Thetis revealed to her son two divergent paths, each with profound consequences that would shape Achilles' destiny and the course of history. One path offered a brief life full of glory, while the other promised the obscurity of a long life forgotten by history. Driven by an insatiable thirst for renown, Achilles chose the former. He would sail to Troy knowing he would never return, embarking on a journey that would etch his name into the annals of time. Achilles, with a heart full of courage and a fleet of 50 ships under his command, set sail for the distant shores of Troy. His formidable army, the Myrmidons, followed their indomitable leader. Among them was Patroclus, his dear friend and trusted companion. As the Greek ships approached the shores of Tenedos, Achilles was at the forefront of the attack, his reputation as a fearsome fighter already having frightened the Trojans. However, fate had a different plan for Achilles that day. During the battle, he found himself facing a formidable opponent, Thetis, son of the god Apollo. The clash between these two warriors was epic, their swords colliding like thunder on the battlefield. Yet, Thetis was defeated and fell by Achilles' sword. After the fierce battle, Apollo, the divine father of Thetis, harbored an eternal hatred for Achilles. This divine resentment would prove to be a dark omen for the hero, contributing to his downfall. In the early years of the war, Achilles' prowess on the battlefield was undeniable. He defeated numerous Trojan champions, leaving a trail of vanquished enemies in his wake. Among those who fell before him were Cycnus, a formidable son of Poseidon, and Troilus, the young prince of Troy. As the Trojan War unfolded, the legendary wrath of Achilles was ignited by a bitter dispute with Agamemnon, the authoritative commander of the Greek army. This conflict began with an apparently trivial event: the arrival of Chryses, a priest of Apollo, at the Greek camp. He desperately sought the release of his daughter, who had been taken as a slave by Agamemnon. When Agamemnon ignored the priest's sincere pleas, Apollo unleashed a devastating plague upon the Greek forces. The once mighty army was decimated by disease, its warriors falling victim to divine wrath. Achilles, guided by his sense of justice, confronted Agamemnon publicly, demanding the release of the young woman. Pressured by the growing calamity, Agamemnon finally yielded to Achilles' demands. However, the proud commander demanded compensation for his supposed loss. Briseis, the beautiful woman taken as war spoils, whom Achilles had captured. This deeply wounded Achilles' pride. Agamemnon insisted on claiming her as compensation, striking at Achilles' honor and pride. Humiliated and enraged by Agamemnon's action, Achilles withdrew from battle. The Trojans, encouraged by Achilles' absence, seized their advantage, led by Hector, the commander of the Trojan army. Desperate and exhausted, Agamemnon realized he needed to act quickly to change the course of the war. He pleaded with Achilles to return to the battlefield, offering not only to return the coveted Briseis, but also promising a wealth of treasures as compensation. Despite the sincere appeals of figures like Odysseus and his cousin Ajax, Achilles remained steadfast in his refusal. The Greeks watched in despair, their last hopes pinned on Achilles' return. As the Trojans continued to gain ground, Hector's relentless attack on the Greek camp set their ships ablaze. Despair took hold of the Greek ranks, as Achilles' absence was a void that could not be filled. Patroclus, Achilles' closest and dearest friend, in an act of altruism and bravery, approached Achilles with a plea. Patroclus begged Achilles for permission to lead the Myrmidons into battle, wearing his armor and carrying his name. Achilles consented to his friend's request. Thus, Patroclus took on the appearance of the great Achilles, entering the battlefield with the weight of his friend's legacy on his shoulders. Patroclus, wearing Achilles' armor, repelled the Trojans, his bravery shining like a beacon. But tragedy, as foretold, could not be avoided. Hector, with divine assistance from Apollo, confronted Patroclus in a clash, and Patroclus fell, pierced by Hector's fatal spear. The death of his dear friend awakened Achilles' fury, prompting him to return to the battlefield, vowing revenge against Hector. Achilles' renewed and unrestrained wrath knew no bounds, and the Greeks celebrated the resurgence of their indomitable hero. Back on the battlefield, Achilles avenged his friend's death by killing Hector and dragging his body around the walls of Troy. In a bold act of humanity, Priam, the king of Troy, ventured into the Greek camp under the cover of night to retrieve his son's body. Kneeling before Achilles, Priam kissed the hands of his son's killer and uttered words of profound sorrow and compassion. Moved by Priam's courage and love, Achilles allowed the Trojan king to recover Hector's body for a proper burial. After this, Achilles agreed to an 11-day truce while the Trojans mourned their fallen warriors. Following Hector's death, the Trojans received aid from the Amazons, a tribe of warrior women descended from Ares. Their fearless queen, Penthesilea, led the Amazon warriors into battle. As the war between the Greeks and Trojans continued, Achilles' fate approached its fateful conclusion, a story marked by betrayal and divine intervention. Paris, the Trojan prince who abducted Helen and triggered the entire conflict, would become the unwitting instrument of Achilles' downfall. Guided by the god Apollo, Paris drew the bowstring, aimed with precision, and released a deadly arrow. This arrow, guided by divine hands, found its mark in Achilles' vulnerable heel, the only spot on his body where he could be wounded. The strike was swift, and Achilles, the seemingly invincible warrior, fell to the ground. The fall of Achilles spread like wildfire across the battlefield, casting a dark pall over both Greek and Trojan ranks. As blood poured from his mortal wound and he felt his life slipping away, Achilles looked to the heavens and questioned the whims of the gods who had blessed him with such strength and cursed him with such weakness, sealing his fate unbeknownst to him. The death of Achilles marked the end of the Trojan War and an era, but not the end of the legend. His legacy of courage, honor, and tragedy made him forever an immortal warrior. To everyone who stayed until the end, my heartfelt thanks. See you on the next journey. Bye.